Why don't you do just like a quick introduction, who you are, what you do?
Yeah, who do we got here?
So I suppose hello again. My name is Lynne Yun, and I'm a person who does all the things related to letters. I'm a calligrapher, type designer, lettering artist, a creative coder. I make a lot of random things with letters, talk letters all the time. Super obsessed.
I love it. I love the what did you say, creative coder? You just slid that one in there. Like those are letters too. I love it. That's great. And you have a couple projects that you work on, Space Type, and do you want to tell us like a little bit about the companies or projects that you're currently working on?
Yeah. So my primary practice is Space Type. So I'm sitting in the Space Type studio right now. We're a type and design studio. And loosely speaking, that does all the things that I just mentioned: type design, lettering, painting murals, creating interactive typography websites. And we also do a lot of teaching in our practice. And when I say we, I run the studio along with my partner Kevin Ye, and so it's the two of us running the studio, and we have a lot of collaborators as well who like come in for special projects, or we just like love collaborating with them for certain initiatives. And I also run an online school called Type Electives with my friend Juan Villanueva. And for that aspect of our practice, like we're really focused on increasing accessibility in type design, because that's an area where so many people just would really benefit from accessibility to education and everything, that perhaps like we just want to share the love of letters and type. We also like really love good type as well. So I'm very excited to be on this podcast. And, the Good Guild, all the cool things. The Conference was really cool too.
Yeah, shout out to the Conference.
Conference.
That's our conference, by the way. It's do you get it? Kerning. Yeah, I got a lot of blank stares from my relatives at Thanksgiving. They were like, "What is
That's
it?"
so funny.
I was like, "It's not for you. You wouldn't understand."
I would kern you and I together at the Conference.
I had a friend photograph our merch that says like, you Kern do it and you live and you Kern. And she was like, I don't get it. And I was like, it's not for you. It's not for you. This is an exclusive society of people who geek out over letters, and you're not it, honey. Get out.
Oh.
But
You're not it, honey.
No, she was like, this is not for me, right? Like, I shouldn't get this. And I was like, probably not. It's fine. But we have this really great trade going where she photographs my work and I do whatever design nonsense she needs. And it's a really good, highly recommend finding a friend who's a great photographer. It's working out really well for me.
Is that a symbiotic relationship? Looking back to my biology, is that the one?
Sure. I don't know.
It sounds right. I don't know, but it sounds right.
On the theme of that, I love that you're collaborating with multiple people doing all the things, Lynn. We love a good collab over here at Good Type. How did you find these fine folks?
That's a good question, right? I feel like the basis of a good collaboration is just to be on the same wavelength as people, right? So I think it's kind of natural that we gravitate towards, just like what Ilana said, like friends that you want to hang around with, and then just like, okay, we're hanging out. Let me do something for you. You can do something for me. And we can use that as an excuse to hang out and grab coffee or, beer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I usually find my collaborators through just, is it lame if I just say like hanging out with people and then sometimes you just click?
Not at all.
It feels like there's I don't have a big tip or secret, I guess.
That is a good secret.
Yeah, it is. Just like being a human and connecting with people on a deep level.
And being open. Yeah.
How do you navigate multiple creative voices within projects, all the way from type design to web? I'm sure there's a lot of creative voices at play, not just with your clients, but between you and the partners you're working with. How do you navigate that? Because I feel like we never learned how to do that. And so for Katie and I, it's just been having open conversations and like trying things and, oh, that didn't work, or that did work. How do you navigate that?
That's a great question. And I think it's something that I still struggle with all the time. from the perspective of when I went to art school, there's different tracks, right? There's like the design track, there's the illustration track, and so forth, and photography. And I was dabbling around all these different things because I couldn't make up my mind like what I wanted to be, right? The classic art school student problem. And it seemed that for photographers and illustrators, it sounded like it was better for you when you were starting out if you found a style and you stuck to it. So people would remember you for your style, for your very specific special thing that you did, and people will be like, okay, I need a cover or I need a photo that looks like this, and we hire this person. And I think as a designer, it's a little bit more ambiguous in the sense where like there's like this way of thinking where like designers should mold their work into the kind of project or purpose whatever they're doing. That sounded very ambiguous. But like, so, right, like there's the idea that design is like the clear crystal glass that shows the content inside. And then like, there's the idea that like design is a personal expression, and like that kind of links back to the whole like illustrator photographer idea a little bit more of like what is your style, what is your vision, and then like there's like all these other branches where like purpose driven design and all of that. And so I feel like I'm always like somewhere in between where like there's things that I want to do as a creative person that feels a little bit more artsy, where I want to try new things, where I want to make things that are super related to whatever I'm interested at the time. And then there's this other side that argues with me that like, but what if you need to do a design that just showcases whatever the content you're supposed to show? For example, like if you do like a gallery page, like it shouldn't be about me, it should just be about the content that is inside the gallery. And so I suppose that wasn't much of an answer as much as just rambling, that I'm always like picking and choosing. And I never know which is the right way to do it, in the sense where there's projects that I look back that I did like 5 years ago that I'm just like, wow, that had a lot of personal expression in it. But at the time, I just thought I was just doing random things. And it's only retroactively as I, every few years, I try to get my portfolio together and I just sort of cherry pick the ones that are most relevant to what I'm interested in. So retroactively, it looks like it's all cohesive, but when I'm doing it at the time, it always feels very ad hoc.
I heard Ken Barber say a quote once, and I think he was quoting somebody else, but I can't remember. That was, you can't not be you, even if you tried. And I think people always, as they're creating their work, they look at it and they're like, oh, anybody could make that. I don't see a voice in there. But again, like you said, retroactively, you can look back and be like, oh, I was all over that. I can't make something that's not based on my own biases and that's not based on my own way of thinking and processing and mark making. It's impossible to not filter that through you. So even when you are being really cognizant of representing a brand and not yourself, it's still going to come out, like pieces of you are going to be in there, I think.
Yeah, totally agree.
Okay, on that topic, this is like going totally out of left field, but I feel like I have to ask this question now. If someone comes to you and says, I'm looking at your portfolio, I love your work, how did you create such a cohesive style? You could tell them what you just told us, how during the process it feels like you have multiple voices talking in your head. What advice would you give someone who's trying to find their style? Would you say just create more work? Or how would you encourage them to create time to play and listen to both of those voices?
Oh, I think there's the long-term vision of having like a cohesive portfolio and, making a living and all of that. And I think there's a short-term goal of just having an enjoyable day. So I would say that you have to balance those two as much as you can, where you are working towards the goal. But if you're really miserable every single day getting there, then is it really worth it? When I talk to students, that problem or request comes up a lot, like as in like, I have decided that this is going to be my personal brand, but I have dedicated so much time into crafting what this is going to be, but it's really hard for me to keep up with it all the time. And then so like, this is where I always say, well, can you just be a little bit more flexible? What if you wanted to change your personal brand next month? And is there room in there to allow for that flexibility? And so it's that balancing act where you also make little escape holes for yourself so you can sort of have a little gradient in there where you can hide if the day-to-day is becoming a little bit sad.
Aw, I love that way of thinking about it. Make little hidey holes for yourself.
Yeah.
What are some of your hidey holes? I know a lot of people like take classes, or maybe they do something that's parallel or not really related to lettering, what things do you do that give you room to play so that you can come back and feel inspired?
Yeah, I take a lot of classes, like a lot of classes. And they're not even really necessarily related to letters, although sometimes they make their way back in because it's hard for someone that just does letters all the time to just not do it in whatever you're doing at some point, right? See a lot of head nods. And so I have taken about 4 full semesters of ceramics, and nobody knows about it because I'm the classic failed ceramicist, probably like many others, right? But it's one of those things where I'm really bad at the wheel, like, because you have to make your little clay thing and the thing is spinning and you have to make your little indents or whatever and they get big and like you're trying to make them look really good. At some point, it just kind of like plops. And then you're just like, well, there goes my 45 minutes and I don't have time to do another one before I go to dinner. So this is it, like my day just in the hole. But in a way, that's like a hidey hole in which
Literally.
yeah, like a literal sad clay hole. But it's like a hidey hole for your brain, I think, where it like teaches you that like, you failed, but it's okay. Did it really do anything for my portfolio? It did not. But I think mentally it gave me a break. And once in a while I make little things like that for I'm trying to think of something. I took woodblock printing classes also for 2 full semesters as well. And that's one of the cases where the first semester was a complete failure. Like there was nothing in there that I could use. Like I was really terrible at the carving, the printing, all the things. And then in the second semester, I made little tiny, of course, letters that just said A, B, C, D all the way through Z. And I had to fake some of it in which like, like a little serif like fell off. So I had to like super glue that wood piece back in so nobody would notice when I printed it. Right. And so sometimes it comes back and I'm just like, oh, that was different, but it was cool. And I haven't done it since, but there's that.
I love that. I don't know why, but when I asked this question, I was like, I wonder if she does ceramics. And I think that's
You just got a face for it.
You've got a face for type design. Wow.
Yeah. That's a great compliment.
So my sister's a ceramic teacher. It's so cool. It seems like such a fun job. And when we were kids, we did a ton of art together. And we joke because I am the clean artist. Like I'm digital, like all my files are on the computer and she's the messy artist. And the other day I went and brought my 2-year-old daughter to glaze with her. And it was so fun. And I was reminded of this idea of just doing something for creative expression or for play. And it's crazy how it parallels the way my creative process goes. I didn't even end up painting. I mean, I had a 2-year-old with me, like around a lot of fragile objects, but just to like put pen to paper or to just make something with your hands, and how being bad at something at first is so hard, but it's so important. And we always think, and we see this a lot with our students right now, we're working with them on their business plan and their artist statement and what defines their work. And they're so set on defining themselves in one way that they get so stuck on realizing that like next year they're going to have a different thing that they love. Next year their style is going to change. Every year they're going to evolve. We're just like, that's who we are as humans. And it's so nice to find a skill or a hobby or a creative expression or whatever it is that you enjoy doing and can just be like kind of bad at it and can watch yourself get better and not have to do it for money.
Yeah, we monetize everything. Once you get that entrepreneur mindset started, it's just like, oh, I could monetize that and that and that. And then it's like, oh, and also suck the joy out of everything.
My husband's such a good example of this. He was a professional bike racer, and we've talked about how he's really glad that he didn't like continue on that path or open a bike shop, maybe one day. But he's like, it wouldn't be fun anymore. It would be my job. And I think there's a lot of value in finding, what did we call them? Hidey holes?
Mm-hmm.
Or these parts of your work that can just be for fun. And it's really fun when you can share those with other people too, even when you're really bad at them, or when they somehow find a way to like weasel their way into your work and bring a little extra to your work. So I think that's really great. We took this conversation in a way different direction than I thought.
I think it's great. I really struggle with this and perfectionism in my life. I had so much reinforcement when I did things above and beyond as a child.
Yeah.
that it really became part of my personality, and like it's really hard to let it go. There's a book called How to Be an Imperfectionist that helped me a lot. I can't remember the author right now, but we'll put it in the show notes. And man, I am actively working really hard to let some of that go. And because like even when I made cupcakes for my friend's like bridal shower, I couldn't just make a freaking cupcake. I had to make succulent piped cupcakes with like gradients in them. And I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? And then my back was hurting for days. And then I got, the reinforcement of people being like, wow, the cupcakes. But I was like, at what cost?
Your soul is like chipped
right
in places.
You know what's funny is I did the same thing with sugar cookies for a brief moment, and I fucking hate sugar cookies. I don't even like them.
We just really have very different dessert tastes because that's exactly the only cookie, that and peanut butter.
Disgusting. I love all desserts. Like I eat dessert twice a day.
Apparently
like,
not.
Yeah, but not sugar cookies, not peanut butter cookies. I like a chunk in my cookie. I like a chunk in my ice cream. I like to chew, I guess.
This is getting weird.
It always gets weird. I think that's what makes us who we are, is we're really weird.
Sugar cookies versus chocolate chip. I'm here for it.
Yeah. Wait, so Lynn, what's your dessert of choice?
I am definitely a dessert person. I also have trouble with too much dessert. I think my favorite right now are chocolate truffles. In a way where it's really hard because it's the summer, and by the time I carry it at home from the store, like they're already half melted. But it's an excuse, they're melting. I have to eat them really fast.
I just want to take one quick moment to shout out eclairs. I feel like they're not talked about enough, and I just want to bring them into the spotlight for just one moment.
None of these do it for me. And what I'm realizing in saying that is that I have the appetite of a 12-year-old.
Yeah, you like she likes like gummy worms.
Funfetti. Also, I'm gluten-free, which like everything is disgusting gluten-free. So anyway, that's like really, really not important.
It's very important. The day-to-day, remember?
I mean, it is important in making my day not suck.
Yeah, we're sprinkling in the fun moments.
I think that's where my head went, was like, if I can make cakes, that would be fun. Like, what's not fun about eating raw batter, But that's not where it went for me.
Lynn, you just seem like somebody who's got a really good balance going. Like you're always I haven't seen you that many times, but every time I have, you're just in such a good mood, and it seems like you're very intentional about making your day fun, and it's just really inspiring. What are some of the things you do throughout the day to kind of keep yourself living in the moment and, like you said, not bogged down by the long-term goal of it all?
Oh, well, I try. Well, I feel like every tip I have is always going to sound like it's like straight out of like a listicle on like BuzzFeed or something. But I go to the gym every day, or try to, because I had a lot of health issues a while back, and like essentially my physical therapist was like, well, if you actually exercise every day, you know that all your problems would disappear. Right? Because I had like tendinitis and all these things. As a person who uses a mouse too much, I'm sure we're familiar with all of those things. Yeah. So I go to the gym for an hour, and like the thing is, like, sometimes I don't do anything there. Sometimes I just like sit there with a podcast and I'm just like walking.
Yeah.
But it's just like the idea that I did something
right
in the morning that, I like start my day afterwards, and I'm just like, well, at least I did something today. I've already like won the day. And then also I also make sure to get dessert after a meal. The sugar levels are always high.
We're actually the same person. This is going to be great for us because our dogs both have really great noses, and I go to the gym at 5:45 in the morning. And some of the days I like the most at the gym are when I'm like literally just walking and reading smut.
Amazing. It sounds great.
How do you walk and read? I just really don't understand how you do that.
I'm really, really talented.
You are.
I'm really good at walking. No, I go to the gym in the morning because I figure I can either wake up and do something for someone else, which for me it would be my kids, but like if I didn't have kids, it would be for work. Or I can wake up and do something for myself. And I feel like it's so much better when I wake up and do something for myself, whether it's Pilates or lifting weights or whatever it is. It feels really good to me. And then I come home and I have a coffee that's basically a, like a popsicle or something. I don't know. I can't think of like a better a piece of cake. Like it's delicious.
Like
and
milk and sugar. Is this just milk and sugar?
It's just milk and sugar. I am Michael Scott. Yeah. So I can totally relate to that. And I love that. And I love that that's a bright spot for you during your day. And also probably great for you since you're probably sitting at the computer a lot of the other time.
Yeah, I mean, my step count, like I can see the little chart where it just looks like spikes in the morning and then it's just like nothing, like in the middle.
Yeah, I had to turn off the thing that was like, move. I was like, okay, all right.
We all have those moments. I've turned it off too.
I turned it off the day I got my Fitbit. I was like, this is not happening.
Yeah. Katie was like being run by her Fitbit. I got to please the watch.
Oh, I still am. All I want to do is my lizard brain is just please the robot.
Anyway, speaking of pleasing people, what markers of success do you have? Because I feel like a lot of people that we talk to say, well, I want to get an agent or I want to work with this brand XYZ. And we know from experience that doesn't define success for us. And it's really up to each person. What to you is a successful project or a successful opportunity or just like makes you feel like you're on the right track? Your green flags.
I think overall, like from a practical sense, I heard, I can't remember where I read this or which book I read this in, but it was like something about like, if a project will give you one of these three things, you should consider it. And those three things were money. So there's something in it for you financially. And then the second thing was there's something in it for you educationally, like as in you're going to learn something from it. And the third one was if that was going to like fill your soul somewhat, right? So it could be for the community or maybe it just fills your artistic soul, whatever it is. And so if it meets only one of these, you should consider it. If it fulfills two of those at the same time, you should seriously consider it. And if it does all three, you should definitely do it. Right. And so like, that's like what I think of sometimes, like, well, like if this project or gig or whatever is going to fulfill one of these three things, then I consider it. And then if it does more, then I seriously consider it. Right. So there's that more logical way of looking at it. And then there's also the idea of just making your day a little bit more enjoyable, because I've definitely worked at like very large corporate jobs where I am, let's say like I'm getting paid a lot. So financially it's worth a lot for just for that aspect. But then like every day I go to work and it's just like a drag and it feels like, I'm like there slogging in there. Nobody appreciates me. Right. And like, that's just really depressing. And I think part of what we're also talking about with like the early morning gym and also the dogs and being outside and getting sun and all of those things are that like sometimes like if you do things that feel good for you, you're actually more motivated to do more things. Like I like definitely realize that sometimes I feel like not doing anything, but if I actually just like sit there and watch like YouTube for like hours, like I have less energy to do anything in the day. Although, maybe from the outside, it seems funny that you would go and exercise or whatever. And then, the logic would be, oh, you've already used up your energy, but it doesn't work like that, right? It's like, there's this weird synergy effect.
An object in motion stays in motion.
Love it. That's right.
I was just going to give a little tip that my therapist told me because I have a little bit of depression, some anxiety. It's like a nice cocktail going on. And when you're sitting there feeling like it's so hard to even think about getting up and like starting to get in motion, and then people are like, just do it. You're like, what the heck? It's not that easy. It's not that easy. So I just want to take a moment and say, my therapist told me to change the circumstance or change the mood with something like maybe it's just putting on some music that's going to get you in a different headspace, or maybe it's like calling your dog over and just like get yourself in like a little moment, take a little step forward, and then it's a lot easier to make that bigger leap. Just wanted to throw that in there.
I love that.
The other thing is to make it more accessible. So whether that's wearing your workout clothes, let's say it's working out, wearing your workout clothes under your clothes, or just wearing them all day, where are we going, honestly? Or cutting up the vegetable before you need, you know what I mean? Like those silly little things. And I'm using the health ones because those are the ones that resonated when I was like learning about this concept, but make things more accessible for yourself. It's okay to bring things a little closer and make it easier for you to access. I think that's also a really great tip, is it doesn't have to be this really hard thing. Walk around the block once if you need to move your body, or get up and dance. It doesn't have to be this like big barrier. It can be something just like a little baby step. I love that.
I love that.
Okay, so what I was going to ask though is, if you are watching YouTube for hours on end, what are you watching? Or is it a different show?
Oh, I watch a lot of cartoons and animated things like BM Puppy Cat is a classic favorite. Now it's on Netflix with higher production value. And I watch a lot of Coding Train as well. So like that's not animated, but like that's like Dan Schiffman's like processing tutorial channel. And like it's just Dan Schiff who's just like talking about like coding, and like he just sits there sometimes and he's like, well, that didn't really work, but maybe I'll try this. And sometimes like I just like sit there and like watch it, and I'm just like, yeah, like I'm just watching someone else be productive and kind of getting like vicarious like enjoyment out of it. It's kind of weird because it doesn't help my productivity, but like, I don't know, it kind of satisfies like the chicken soup portion of the soul or something. What else am I watching? Lots of video games.
Shout out to Chicken Soup for the Soul.
That's right. That's right.
Video games, what do you play?
I play a lot of Switch games and PlayStation 5 games.
Okay.
Like really difficult games like Elden Ring. Like I sink a lot of time into it, like an embarrassing amount.
We're just starting our son on Mario Kart on the Switch, and we're like, every time he's like, I won. And we're like, He's like 12th place. He hasn't left the start line. We're like, you did so great. Wow. He's like going backwards instead of forward.
That's a great attitude. I love it.
Well, he's very competitive. He's a fierce 5-year-old. He's wonderful. But video games are fun. Anyway, I feel like we've covered some ground here. I kind of want to do rapid fire. What do you think, Katie?
Well, can I ask one more question?
I guess, yeah.
I want to know about your experience as a teacher. And I would just love to know, like, what are some things that you've learned about teaching? Because, sometimes it's like a natural progression to step into teaching for a lot of us artists, but it's hard to go back to the previous you and think, how would this person have understood this? Sometimes make things a little too complex or can't remember what that felt like. So I'd love your feedback on what you learned.
I think teaching exposes your weaknesses in many different ways. And I think when I first started teaching, I had this idea that I had to be perfect. I had to know everything. Like I was just like rereading all the resource that I had before I came into class, trying to be prepared. But then, there's like people in the class and they ask one question and you have no idea. And you're just like, oh, that's a valid question that I have no answers to. And in that moment, I'm just like, let me get back to you next week. And then I go and like frantically like go on like armchair research mode for like 2 days to come up with, some kind of viable response to that question. And so I think teaching for me has become a little bit more of a lifestyle in the sense where I am excited about the subject and other people get to be excited about that topic. And then they throw me questions that really boggle my mind sometimes. And then I think that feeds into the other parts of my practice because I thought I was interested in this one thing, but then other people ask you different kinds of questions. And now you're also interested in this adjacent thing, right? So I get to go and like do like this like interest hopping, right? From like place to place. Yeah. In like many different ways. Yeah.
So interesting looking at things from the teacher perspective. It kind of changes everything and puts everything on its head and makes you be so introspective. I definitely have that issue of feeling like I should have all the answer. And if I don't, I'm a failure of a teacher and I shouldn't have gotten up and taught in the first place. Like, how dare I? But I remember when I was in my first art direction job out of college, my boss, a producer where I worked, was like, when a client asks you something and you don't know, you don't have to like pretend. You can just say, let me get back to you on that. And it was something like so simple. And you said it too. That's your response. Like, hey, it's okay that I don't know that. Let me look it up for you. And that part of being a teacher is that like leadership. It's more so than being an encyclopedia, just being the person that can point them in the right direction, and you can learn at the same time as they do.
I think it's also asking the right questions back. I'm in this leadership group right now, and one of the things I've found about all the leaders that are coming to teach us to be good leaders is that whenever we have a comment, they come back at us with a question, almost like a therapist would do, like, not just like, how does that make you feel, but like, what is your biggest takeaway from that? And then they'll reiterate what we're saying and rephrase it back to us with a opportunity to go even deeper. And it's amazing. I taught at the college level, and I was a little bit thrown in, just like taught my first class knowing nothing about teaching at the college level besides like having a sister that's a high school teacher. And wow, it was a doozy. And I truly learned a lot, but I nobody prepared me for that. And I'd like to go back now, knowing what I know from working with people on a more like individual level and what we do at Good Type, and see how that experience could change, because it was just, what a job. The weight of the world, you're like molding people's brains. It's incredible. And it was an incredible experience. And I'm excited to revisit that in the future. So we'll see.
The asking questions thing is really important at every stage of being an artist and teacher and human being. And that was another big thing that I learned in that same job as an art director, was to ask the clients questions. Like when they're like, I want you to make this thing for me. The old me right out of college would have been like, okay, here are, like, they've given me the dimensions. They want this, they want that. I'm going to put it on this thing. Done. No, it's not necessarily done, because it might not make sense. You might have to ask some deeper questions, like, is this the medium that we should be using? Is this the right place for this? Is this the right approach? And I never thought I could ask those questions. I was far too timid, but it's totally changed me as a designer and human to know that's an arena that I can go into. I can say, are we going in the right direction?
I love this way that the conversation has taken. I feel like a lot of it is compassion, right? Like being a good like project manager, leader, teacher, student, like all of these is just being a little bit more empathetic and compassionate, and also just like listening, right? Like that all of these things can't happen if you're not an active listener. And I love how, Ilana, you said that it's almost like being a therapist, asking these like questions to like lead the thinking into places. Like, I do that a lot too. I've had like different therapists over the years, and I find myself sometimes when I'm like in different situations, like, as a teacher or like as a designer working for a client, like I like put on the hats of different therapists. Like, this is what my therapist like so-and-so might ask, so I'll ask this question, like I like put on the little therapist hat.
I love that.
How does that make you feel?
This is a really good segue, because you're actually teaching in the Good Guild, and you're going to teach about flourishes.
That's right.
Just a quick informational segment, I guess, if you will, is that the Good Guild is our membership, and it's a combination of coaching and education. And every month we teach a new workshop, and you'll be in teaching about flourishes, and you'll be in for a live Q&A where people can share their work and they can get feedback from you. It's an amazing group. We've been having so much fun exploring and really working with all the students to make sure they not only like grasp the subject, but to make sure that they feel supported by the rest of the students. And it's been really cool so far. We spent a long time working on it, so it's amazing that it's finally here, but we can't wait to have you in the workshop. So we'll include that information in the show notes as well.
It's like an accelerator for your art business.
It's exactly what it's like. It's a great way to sum it up. I want to wrap up with a rapid fire round, which we're looking for names for. We like a good pun, and we seem to be really lacking at this one, but we just want to do like silly questions that we think are more interesting sometimes than the other stuff.
All right.
Get ready. Prepare yourself. What typeface do you always reach for?
Accidents Grotesque, because that is what my sophomore typography teacher used.
Same.
We all have those influences somewhere. I used like Euro style at some point when I was in college, and I got yelled at so hard. There's just those typefaces that I remember from my youth, and I either have like shame around them or like weird feelings.
They come with baggage.
Mine was Brandon Grotesque for a long time. I could spot that a mile away now. I'm at Target. I'm like, there it is. Okay, what design trend really grinds your gears? Got any that you're just like, I'm waiting for this one to die?
Retro condensed Garamond trend that has refused to die for a long time now. I think it's still going on.
Okay, this one's really important. How do you like your pizza?
Pineapple pizza, which I know is very controversial.
It's so controversial. I mean, I'm here for pizza. I don't care. Would you rather use curls for all your life or lose the use of your thumb?
Oh, curls. Definitely curls. I can do so much fun with curls. With my thumbs and curls, I can do lots of things.
Okay, would you rather have your drawing etched into the back of your hand, Harry Potter style, anytime you illustrate, or have to sleep in a tiny closet under the stairs for the rest of your life?
Wait, are we talking like the Umbridge
Yes.
style, like
Yeah.
punishment? Okay. Or a closet under the stairs.
Yeah, this is what happens, Ilana, when you tag me and say, write some what you rather. It's like, here you go.
I don't even know how to respond to this one.
Wow, that's a really, really tough one.
Thank you.
I have like the movie replaying in my head. Like there were spiders in that closet. Like there was like, I have to think I have to do the closet.
Yeah.
I want to draw a lot.
You could like Pinterest that closet up.
I love that. I love that.
Who are two designers who you're really inspired by right now? Or artists. It doesn't have to be in the type world. It could be whatever.
I really love the work that Beatrice Lozano has been doing. She does all the things. So I feel like I'm having a hard time summing her up as a profile.
We'll link her.
Great.
Okay.
So Beatrice is known for doing a lot of her AR type work. And so like that is also a huge point of fascination for me, that you can have 3D type out in the world, like through filters, through apps. And I just find it fascinating that someone just keeps working at it in like a field where not a lot of work has done before. And of course it's with letters, which always strikes my fancy, along with a lot of her activist work that she does all the time as part of her practice. So I admire her work a lot. As for another person, I'm thinking, there's so many people I could just go down the list, but I really love the work that Trey Seals has been doing with vocal type. He just has been making typefaces for so many people. Like the Spike Lee one is probably just so up there. I'm just like looking at all of Trey's work and I'm just like, you're doing such amazing work. And especially as, how should I say this? Like, I think I admire people who have a motivation to do something and they just keep going at it when nobody else has really been doing that type of exact thing before. And I think that's also what I find really inspiring about Beatrice with her activist work and AR work, and Trey also with taking references from minority cultures and making sure that these like protest signs are made into type that can be used for other things, or like some sort of inspiration like that. And like, when people do like one, two, or three of them, you're like, oh, like that's cool. But then like they just keep on doing it and like for years and years. And you're like, wow, like that's like dedication. And like every year, like it just more and more comes up and like stacks into like a collection of work that, as creative people, I think there's a lot of work that you see around and you're like, wow, like that person has been at it for a long time and it just keeps on getting better.
I love that.
Yeah. So, those are two people.
I think that another theme I'm seeing is that both of those people are full of intention and purpose through their work. And I think that's true for you as well. And I think that's why people are drawn to your work first and foremost, is that it's not just fluff and it's not just fun to look at, but it's like there's a ton of purpose and intention woven throughout your work. So I really appreciate that. Thanks for sharing those names with us.
Oh, thank you.
Where can people follow along, find you, give you love, check out your dog?
Instagram, I suppose. I have a hard time with multiple social channels.
Yeah,
so that's all I got. Yeah, at Lynne Yun, at Space Type Co on Instagram.
Awesome. All right, we'll send people your way. Thanks for coming on the show, and we'll see you in the good guild.
Yeah, you're just a bright ray of sunshine.
Oh, thank you. You too. I'm having so much fun. I love it.
Awesome. Well, we'll do it again.
All right. Sounds great to me. Awesome. Thank you.